All right, well, it is 7 o'clock, so we will go ahead and start the event. Welcome everyone to the Detroiters Working for Environmental Justice Summer Watch Party. My name is Brad Ashburn, and I am the Communications Manager here at DWEJ, and I'll be one of your hosts tonight. We're thankful for you being here on this beautiful Michigan summer evening. We are proud to present the multiple award-winning short film filmed here in Highland Park called The Waterfront. Thank you to some of our sponsors for tonight, the Friends of DWEJ level, Lynette Cobb of Green Streams Workforce Consulting, and Gary Wozniak from Recovery Park. Now I'm done.
Thank you, Brad. My name is LaPrecia Daniels. I'm the Executive Director of Detroiters Working for Environmental Justice. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our mission here at DWJ is to advocate for a healthy environment through innovative community and policy action that values all people. Our vision is for all people to benefit from environmental policies and policy processes that value the voices and reflect the will of impacted community. This film really aligns well with our mission and vision, and we're excited to have you join us for this watch party. We have the pleasure of having Elizabeth Miller, the filmmaker, with us today. And Elizabeth Miller is a documentary filmmaker and a professor of communication studies at Concordia University in Montreal. And we are going to start with asking her a couple of questions and then also asking that she introduce the film. Elizabeth, how did you find out about the story and what compelled you to make the film?
Well, first of all, LaPrecia, thank you so much for hosting this amazing event. And let me also just thank you for the amazing work that you're doing on an ongoing basis. My time in Highland Park was some time ago, but I am so thrilled to be here tonight to speak and to learn more about all the invaluable work you've been carrying on since. So I am someone who cares passionately about environmental justice. And in 2002, I was beginning to understand this kind of massive corporate move towards the corporatization of water, towards the privatization of water. And it kind of blew my mind in a way that had me speaking to people all over the world, in South America, in Africa, across America and Canada. And I was at a conference when I met Maureen Taylor. And she started talking about her community. And there was something about her vision, her passion, her conviction, and the way she was intersecting issues between gender, between class, between race, that made me feel like this was a person who could communicate to audiences in the United States this story, but also this issue in a really important way. So while I initially thought I was going to tell this global story, when I met Maureen, I knew that I needed to learn more, to visit Highland Park, and eventually this turned into a series of friendships and relationships over a 6-7 year period. Took a really long time to make the film because it was perpetually underfunded. I shot the film myself. I edited the film myself. So it was a real labor of love, but it was only in the shadow of the passion of the individuals that I met in Highland Park who were fighting for what was the civil rights of the issue of this moment.
Thank you for that. And we appreciate your passion. You mentioned, Ms. Taylor, Maureen's passion, but your passion is coming through right now as well. So we appreciate you being here with us and sharing that energy. How do you or did you attempt to honor the challenge of a community's need to get the word out with the filmmaker's need to tell a complex story? How do you balance that?
You know, it's so interesting because when we think of environmental justice and we think of injustices more broadly, or even, climate injustices, some of the issues we're facing, we know we're talking about urgent issues, things that are impacting people's lives, people that were being evicted from their homes, that were facing the anxiety of these outrageous bills. These are really, really urgent issues. And yet, in order to face them, we have to form trust and lasting relationships, and we have to tell stories that are complex and that take into consideration the longer crisis, the longer story of these issues. And so it was really tough because it took a lot, because the film had no financial funding behind it. It took a long time to make the film. And in that process, I knew that the community was eager to share this story with the, I wasn't a news organization who was reporting. So what we did was we created a 7-minute trailer that kind of became a piece that could circulate in advance of finishing the film. And this became really important because even one of the main characters in the film, Valerie, main protagonist in this water struggle, she was actually quite sick when the film was in progress. And having something like a trailer midway through that, I mean, it was a 7-minute short piece, so it was a bit more than a trailer, really kind of helped get the word out while the longer film took its time. So I think, you know, in social movements and even in filmmaking, this idea connection is not fantastic, but the most important thing to say is just really it's challenging to make a documentary that honors the complexity of the social movement of Highland Park. And in order to get the word out, we created a shorter version so that it could sort of meet the needs of the activism that was happening. But the longer film, we were hoping, would honor the complexity of the issues.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to now ask that you introduce the film in only, you know, in the way that only you could as the filmmaker. So if you can do a quick intro, and then I believe we're going to get into the film. Is that right, Brad? All right.
I think we're actually a minute or two ahead. So if you, Ms. Miller, if you want to tell us about anything you're working on now, you know, for a minute or so, and then we can switch to the intro.
My work has never left the arena of environmental justice. So all of my work continues to be about climate injustice, about environmental concerns. I'm currently working on a very local project in Montreal. It's called Wastegapes, and it's actually an augmented cycling tour that looks at the stories behind some of the most important wastegapes in our city. So you have to be at the site. It's like Pokemon, but with content. So you actually have to cycle to the place, be there, and it unlocks stories from the past that help us see the layers of history that are connected to wastegapes. And we all know that waste is a huge environmental concern, especially in a city like Montreal, where there's corruption and there's many issues.
That's a great idea. It gets people to the site. It's much different than seeing it on the screen.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for your patience. So this film needs very little introduction because it's full of incredible, strong women who are defending their right to water in a city that is challenging financial concerns, in a city that is forced to make very difficult decisions. And it profiles primarily female protagonists who are pushing back towards decisions that are being made strictly for financial concerns. A community that with dignity is really pushing back in the defense of one of our most basic human rights, water. And Maureen Taylor, who you're going to meet afterwards, is one of the most inspiring women I've ever met. And she's in this film doing what she does best, which is defend her community, watch out for her community, and name injustice when she sees it. I'm so proud to have met her, and it was a true honor to make this film in collaboration with everybody in that community.
Okay, as everyone's coming back, we'd also like to take this time to thank another sponsor at the advocate level, Kerry Stanton. Thank you very much, Kerry, for your support of our event. And now we will go ahead. Thank you again, Elizabeth Miller, for that great movie. And thank you for joining us. We are going to go ahead. I'm going to hand it back over to Lucretia, and she is going to talk with our next guest.
Yes, so I am trying to stay on this timeline, but I have to say that I am a new executive director to DWJ, and so a little over 30 business days. And part of my charge is to set priorities for the organization. And one item that I know the board expects me to bring to bear is really getting back to our roots as DWJ in terms of elevating community voices. And so this was so inspiring for me. And you know, you mentioned that the film was done a while ago, but it's still very timely. And so there were so many pieces in there that were really, really inspiring and had my wheels turning about what we need to be doing as DWJ in the community. So thank you so much for that. I also really enjoy documentaries. The only thing better than a documentary is a really good documentary. And so this fit the bill. So thank you. So we are going to move on to talking to Maureen Taylor, who was featured in the film. She is a lifelong soldier in the war against the poor. She has served as state chair of the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization since 1993 and was elected treasurer of the National Welfare Rights Union in 1994. She was also the lead plaintiff in the class action lawsuit brought by Highland Park residents over the events we saw in the film. So thank you for being with us, Ms. Maureen Taylor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Alrighty, and I'm trying to see, hold on a minute. I have my tech expert here that can do something about starting the video so that you might, there I am, there we go.
There you are.
Alrighty,
Lovely
okay.
to see you.
Thank you so very much for inviting me and including me, and you know, over a period of years, we've gotten to be very, very, welfare rights has gotten to be very, very close with Miss Liz. And whenever we can find a way to sneak Liz across the border from Canada, we do that, but we haven't been that successful here lately. So would you like me to just give my reflections on where we are?
Sure. However you would like to do it.
Alrighty. Brad gave me a couple of pointers in terms of what he wanted me to address.
Okay.
And one of the areas he wanted me to speak very briefly about was what was it like to be involved in this level of struggle. And I want to say to you and to the folks that are watching, I was only a bystander at this event. Liz found me first, but I took her directly to Marion Kramer, Valerie Johnson, some of the folks that were residents of Highland Park, because it was in Highland Park that it became clear people were getting water bills in the $2, $3, $4, and $5,000 range. And we took Liz straight to them. And she was able to talk to those residents. And this was the most insane thing any of us had ever seen. And I live in Detroit, and Marion, National Chair of Welfare Rights, and others lived in Highland Park. I didn't see this fight coming. I didn't see it. Okay. Marion said this fight about water is so significant, we better pay attention to it. I didn't see it. She was right. Then Brad asked me to say a little something about the class action lawsuits. Well, if you live in Detroit, everybody knows, one, you're going to get in trouble a lot. Two, when you get in trouble, you call Alice. And the third point is, you're not going to be able to escape from point number one. You're going to get in trouble. So everybody knows when the difficulty comes up with the government and the water department and the welfare department and the energy department, you call Alice. So when the opportunity rose for residents in Highland Park to talk about class action lawsuits and suing water departments in Detroit, suing water departments in Highland Park, we got a hold of Alice, and we talked Alice into putting together lawsuits to sue the United States of America about shutting off water. We weren't going to we weren't going to just keep this local. Alice, you go from coast to coast and find out how to sue all of them. anybody that had anything to do with shutting off water when you wake up and go to your job in the morning and somebody knocks on the door, you open it, Alice is standing there ready to lawsuit you to make you stop these bad behaviors. And then the third thing that Brad asked me to mention was whether or not welfare rights and some of the folks that I've spoken about, if we're still working in this area of fighting to maintain access to public water and sanitation. And this is the fight of a lifetime. This one is. I mean, welfare rights is always about the business of fighting against poverty, of fighting racism, but this insidiousness of shutting off water where there are low-income people, where there are low-income veterans, where there are low-income disabled people, where there are low-income elderly people, is so horrific. It's so horrific that this will be a battle that welfare rights will take on forever. We feel like we sort of gave birth to Detroiters for working for environmental justice. We gave birth to several organizations that are doing this kind of environmental work. When we first started, Victor Mercado, that was before he became a prison inmate number 602903. He was the head of the water department in 2002. And since that time, we were alone in those early days, but there've been a number of brand new soldiers that have come to this fight. And it's just so wonderful to have these kind of comrades to show up and to get involved with this kind of a fight, not just environmental fights across the board, but to fight to demand access to clean water and sanitation. So I think that's about my 6 or 7 minutes. I wanted to at least hit on those things that Brad asked me to, and I am an obedient soldier. So thank you for letting me speak on this issue, and I'll go back on mute.
We appreciate you, Ms. Taylor. And it is clear, Liz, what you spoke about in terms of that passion and that energy that comes across. So thank you for supplying that to us this evening. The next speaker that we have is Alice Jennings. And so, I'm sorry, give me one sec here. Ms. Alice Jennings is a partner at the Detroit law firm Edwards & Jennings and an alumni of Wayne State University Law School. She's a longtime advocate for civil rights and environmental justice and a co-lead attorney representing Highland Park residents in their lawsuit.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, let me just say, Maureen Taylor has embellished somewhat, but it's been a privilege and really, it's been love that's kept me going with these water warrior friends of mine that I've got to meet since 2014. I want to thank DWEJ. Many years ago in the 1980s, Grace Lee Boggs and myself, Donnell Wilkins, Catherine Savoy helped create the organization. And one of the first things we were able to do was to shut down the incinerator at Henry Ford Hospital. So my roots run very deeply in the environmental justice movement and DWEJ, and I served on the board for about, I think, 6 years. So it's love and appreciation that I'm here today. I want to thank as well the other speakers, Elizabeth Miller, Maureen Taylor. She's just, you know, both of you together put a film that is a classic, and the human right to water and what we feel when we watch those scenes in the movie are so moving and palpably touch one's heart, where we know that not to have water, the medical implications of not having water and not being able to hydrate oneself, clean oneself, take medication to for children to have water for their bottles, or seniors to have the connection to mix their life formula. It is really devastating. One of the things we fought so hard for was that there not be shutoffs, and we're still fighting for that. You asked what's going on now. We have a new case that's been pending in front of the federal district court judge, the Taylor et al. Case. So the story is continuing. And of course, Senator Stephanie Chang has been our champion in the legislature as we pivoted out of the legal arena, Michigan Welfare Rights and the People's Water Board Coalition to do legislative policy planning and work around this issue as well. The lawsuit was filed. Unfortunately, Highland Park had the water system shut down in 2012. And after that, there were bills that were just make-believe bills. The meters did not work. People were getting $6,000 bills for a 30 or 90-day period. Some people got one bill for $50 one month, the next month $3,000. To make a very long, and the city ordinance stated specifically that the bill had to be based upon meter readings, which it was, at that time, it was absolutely guesswork. And there was, I think, one person or two people going around checking the meters. And in fact, one of the persons spent most of their time at the local bar. It was a well-known fact. So not too much meter reading was going on. We fought the case. At that time, there were 9,000 to 10,000 citizens in Highland Park. There were approximately 2,600 non-commercial customers or residential. Marilyn Mullane had fought along with Michigan Welfare Rights in the struggles that took place during the period of the waterfront. This became the second step as we move forward. As it turned out, Vanessa Fluker joined our legal team. Vanessa was born and raised there in the city of Highland Park and was instrumental in knowing some of the deeply rooted issues that were going on there. We were able to negotiate. We probably, I think, went to 20 or 25 settlement conferences, and we were able to resolve in what we call, and lawyers call, a consent judgment, which binds the city to a process where all of the bills from 2012 and before up to 2016 were liquidated. They were waived. They were not based on any factual basis that could stand up in a court of law. And this Highland Park city manager, Ms. Squares, decided along with the lawyers it would be better to give that up. And also we were able to put a stop on shutoffs and also on taxes for the period of time the case was pending. Let me just wrap up. I think the most important, that was certainly important, a couple $1 million worth of bills that were liquidated. The case is still ongoing to the degree that there can possibly be some credits for people who made payments during the time. But probably the most critical part of this litigation was the fact that there is now a water affordability plan in effect that a citizen who is having an inability to pay their bill can go and sit down and not have to enter into an agreement where they will not pay more than 5% of their income. And we believe that this is going to be a hallmark of other programs around the country as well. And that is in the consent judgment. And we have actually a policy and procedure reference in the ordinance at this point. So that with that, I'm going to stop talking because I'm a lawyer. I probably could talk for about 2 or 3 more hours. So I'm going to shut up.
We appreciate that context. That was very helpful.
Yes.
We will have some time at the end for additional questions for all of the panelists. And so we will reserve some time at the end for that. But Brad, if you wanted to move us along.
Our next guest is Senator Stephanie Chang. Senator Chang is the first Asian American woman to be elected to the Michigan legislature. Prior to being elected, she worked as a community organizer in Detroit for nearly a decade before serving 2 terms in the Michigan House of Representatives. She also worked as a community engagement coordinator for the James and Grace Lee Boggs School and an assistant to Grace Lee Boggs, an activist, writer, and speaker, and as Alice noted, one of our co-founders. So welcome, Senator Chang.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. And what an amazing lineup of people. This is amazing. So I'm just really grateful to be part of this event, and hope everyone enjoyed the film. So, I was asked to talk about a couple of things. First, how did I get involved in water issues? Well, I think that, so when I first ran I first ran for the State House in 2014. And so that was the year that there were, just massive shutoffs happening in Detroit. And so I was, knocking on people's doors, talking to people, and, also learning about all of what was going on. And so then actually my very first year in office was approached about, basically seeing, what can we do about it at state level? And could we host a hearing at the state capitol regarding water affordability and shutoffs? And so, so we worked together to put that amazing hearing at the Capitol together back in June of 2015, where we had 75 to 100 people come, and just had some really amazing people testify about their own experiences from Detroit and Flint and Highland Park. This was, keep in mind, this was actually before the studies that were released that October about the lead in Flint's water, but we had folks come up from Flint too, or from down over from Flint to talk about what was going on there. And I think it really helped to really make that connection of like what was going on in all 3 areas. And then, so we have a number of bills that we've put together that really try to get at water affordability, addressing shutoffs, addressing issues with billing, especially with some of the issues that we know were happening in Highland Park, and reconnections. So these are really common sense bills that we're so proud to have worked on with the People's Water Board and many others to really push these forward. And, as terrible as the COVID-19 pandemic has been, one sort of silver lining, I guess, I don't know if that's the right term or not, but has been that it's brought more attention to issues around water access. And I think that more people now than ever before understand that water shutoffs are a problem for public health, and that they're a huge concern. And we also now have data that we didn't have before about the huge numbers of Michigan households that have been behind on their water bills. Literally at one point over 317,000. And so we've got some more information that we can share with people who can no longer deny that this is a problem. So, last year, seems like a long time ago now, but it was just last year that we worked on getting a statewide water shutoff moratorium passed during the pandemic. Because this was after the Supreme Court decided that the governor could no longer issue executive orders under the 1945 Emergency Powers of the Governors Act, which anyway, the whole conversation we can have about that too. But anyway, so unfortunately, the moratorium that the governor had issued was no longer in effect. So then we said we need to put something in effect because even though Detroit at that time had announced that they were going to stop shutting off, we were very concerned about what was going on. And so we had this really amazing coalition of groups, People's Water Board folks, environmental advocates, the water providers themselves, the Catholic Conference, the nurses, and just, I think I had like 4 to 5 lobbyists that I knew that I said, can you please help? And we got it done, which honestly was a minor miracle to get a water shut-off moratorium passed in a Republican legislature. But we got it done through a lot of hard work. Unfortunately, it was only 3 months, but thinking about that, I mean, we did, I'm thinking about what if we hadn't gotten that passed, that would have meant hundreds of thousands of people potentially without water in January. So, I'm proud of that work. But obviously we've got much more to do in terms of the long-term solutions that we have been talking about with our bills, and that we're going to keep pushing until we get them done. And so we've got a number of bills. I'll put some information in the chat. I'll put a link into some information about the bills that we have previously introduced and that we will keep introducing until they get passed. I do think that this term, the one that we are really trying to organize and really figure out how we can get this done, because it's probably the most doable at this point, is really around water rate transparency, which is honestly just like bare minimum. We should know what's going on with our water rates across the state. So we're, ALS is a part of that effort, and we're just going to keep pushing forward. We're going to keep pushing forward. So thanks for the opportunity to be here. I think it's really important that we continue to share what's going on, what has been happening, the historical elements of all of this, and most importantly, what the human impact of water shutoffs are, which is really what brought me to this work, and what will continue to motivate me and all of us to keep fighting for water justice. Thank you.
Our final speaker, before we start the Q&A from the audience, is Dr. Robert Mitra from Wayne State University. He's an associate professor in the communications department. And I have my notes here. His research is at the intersection of organizational and environmental communication. Prior to obtaining his PhD from Purdue University, he worked in the business, news, and public relations fields in India for 3.5 years. His scholarship focuses on environmental organizing, sustainability, and corporate social responsibility, and meaningful work discourses. Dr. Mitra came to my attention through his work with the Detroit water stories as I was researching this topic. So we are happy to have you with us. Welcome, Dr. Mitra.
All right, thank you so much for having me here in such illustrious company. So I'll just follow everyone's example and just start talking a little bit about how I sort of got involved in this. Okay. It really began in 2018, late 2018, with a class project that we did at Wayne State. We really wanted to start finding out why the water shutoffs were still continuing. To be honest, at that point of time, I hadn't really researched quite a lot about the background and the issues and the broader impact. But from what I'd read in newspapers and other media, it seemed such a horrendous thing to keep going on. And it was already year 5 or thereabouts by 2018. That the water shutoffs had happened. After that initial class project, we sort of published that into a working paper, which I'll just put the link over here for the free version in the chat window if you're interested. I really wanted to go deeper into this notion of what was happening, and more importantly, what could we do as academics to really work and partner with community organizers on the forefront to figure out what we can do to really stop this. And so thanks to grant funding, it really evolved into really a very publicly accessible and collaborative project where our focus is really on trying to get the oral histories and the testimonies of folks who've been on the front lines of the crisis, who can really provide a deeper understanding of what it's like to, well, of course, have your water shut off, but also to fight the system. What strategies have worked? and really how can we sort of rehaul this broader understanding of who pays for water. And this is really important because as you saw in the documentary, time and again, you had some of these protagonists just push back on these notions of free water, for instance. Well, no water is free, or thinking really, or basically tarnishing everyone who gets shut off as saying, oh, well, you can afford to buy a movie ticket, but you can't pay your water. So, that kind of logic is horrendous. And so, for us as scholars who team up with policymakers and practitioners and activists such as yourself, it's really important for us to figure out what makes this kind of logic tick and how can we counter this logic, through rhetoric and messages that can really be more effective. And so that would be, I would say, the eventual goal really of the Detroit Water Stories project. So on our website, and I'll share the link here as well with you all in the chat window. The crown jewel, I guess, of the Water Stories project are the oral histories from water rights activists, as well as people who've maybe not been on the front lines as much, but definitely provide a really important outsider perspective. A case in point, for instance, would be water engineers, who honestly, many of whom initially their gut reaction might in fact be to share the perspective of some of the folks who were interviewed in this documentary. But really, as we keep talking and keep talking about really the human impact of water affordability and accessibility, a lot of the folks who I interviewed really started understanding, well, yeah, you're right, someone has to pay, but what can we do to really think inventively and creatively about this process? But in addition to the oral histories, you'll find that we've tried to curate a list of resources for education drawn from academia, from community resources, as well as the news media. We've also shared some of the video footage that my collaborator in the project started collecting. And I'll share one more link with you all. And this is our YouTube channel, where we've basically listed all of the oral history videos, as well as some of the additional footage that we've collected. I'm working right now with some students in our media arts part of the department to basically create short webisodes, 3 to 4 minute punchy webisodes that really get at some of the core ideas of the water affordability crisis. So I'll stop there, but obviously this work is ongoing, and there's a lot more that really needs to be done. I think COVID-19 really threw a spanner in the works in more ways than one. But we're definitely looking forward to doing more collaborations with community and other partners.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, that concludes our guest speakers, and we will go ahead and open up the meeting to the audience that ask questions, comments, pay a compliment to any of the speakers. The floor is now yours, but our other speakers there. Tanya Jennings has a question. Go ahead, Tanya.
Yes, I just want to say, I don't have a question, more so just a comment. I just like to thank all of you guys for being water warriors, for those of us that either don't have a voice that's loud enough or just too shy. So thank you all for all the work that you guys are doing, and just keep working at it, and we'll continue to support you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. Dr. Mitra, go ahead and say what you just put in the chat there. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that not all of the interviews are on the website currently. I think we have about 18 on the website. We conducted about 38, I think, And there are several more that I still need to follow up on, including some of the folks in this panel. So just wanted to just clarify that.
Can you tell us about one of the stories that really stood out to you? You talked about the water engineers, but some of the residents, the people that lived in the city, maybe.
So I'm actually going to turn that around a little bit, Brad, if you don't mind, because that's actually one of the points that I think that we kind of need to counter a little bit. I think with the rhetoric around water shutoffs, often the folks who have been shut off are often, I think, treated by broader media discourse as tell me a story, tell me about that time that you had your water shut off. And I think that can be potentially really insensitive for a lot of folks who have been in that position. And so rather than say horror stories, of course there are horror stories, right? I mean, people have to manage their water when it's cooking or whether it's their everyday needs. Of course, there are all sorts of horror stories. Any of us, if we have to live without running water for forget a day, for a few hours, it's a major inconvenience. But I think it's really more important to recognize that this needs to be an ongoing concern, and we really do need to think about these folks who have really not just who have been through this, not just as people to get a soundbite in, but really as really important community leaders for the future, and really for the present. One person who comes to mind right away is Nicole Hilt, who is someone who survived Katrina and of course now in Detroit is one of the leaders with the People's Water Board. So many of the members I see here in this chat as well. So I mean someone like her definitely comes to mind right away.
Okay, thank you, and you make a great point. Yeah, it wasn't to tell us some of the things that happened to them, but these are people, and that they there's a big story behind just their what did you say, soundbite, right?
This is Maureen. I'd like to raise a question with your audience members. Turn this around a little bit like the doctor just did. May I?
Yes.
Okay. We are raising a number of philosophical questions in welfare rights that sound like this. Where is it that we have become accustomed to if the water bill is behind, who authorizes the city or the water department to disconnect it? Knowing that it is torturous for a family to not have water. Where is that authority come from? And we're raising it throughout welfare rights across the nation. And certainly Ms. Alice is one of our leading experts in fighting with the utility company, Lights and Gas. Where is the authorization? Where do people get that thought from? That if I'm behind on my car note and I have a disabled child in my household, and I have to use my car to take that child or my parent or my husband or somebody in my house, I have to take that person back and forth to the hospital because of an illness. Where is the authorization come from to say, I can deny you that and I can take that car back? I can take that that gas, that heat, those lights, shut your water off, and the community believes that that's okay. Where does that idea of torture, where does that come from that says that's all right to do that? And I go back on mute because I'm looking for answers for that one.
Well, if I could just say this, Maureen, and I failed to mention the role that Marion Kramer has played and been involved in with Michigan Welfare Rights and the People's Water Board, and it must be because it's so late in the evening. But Marion Kramer will tell you the people have the power to make these ultimate decisions. But unfortunately, we have leaders who don't have the willpower. And so they get in the legislative branches where laws are made, and they make laws that say that you can cut water off if the bill is not paid. And that you can take somebody's house away if they get a bill placed against their taxes for 2 or 3 years, depending on the area of the city or the state. And that's okay too. So part of it goes to the fundamental rights of our democracy and who we elect and who we believe are leaders, and whether or not people are connected to making just profit or if they truly care about the human condition. And so this is our war. We're in this war right now across the world, not just here in the United States. So what kind of people are we going to be? At least that's my position. And yet at the same time, in the law, we can take that very same ordinance, like in Highland Park, which, as Marion pointed out, she is the lead plaintiff in the case, they're not following their own rules. And so, so it's a double-edged sword. If you're not following your own rules, then they could be hoisted on that process. So.
When I was talking to the guest speakers, getting everyone lined up, I can't remember whether it was Alice or Maureen or Marion. Marion is in New Orleans right now, working at an event. That's why she couldn't be with us. I did put in a request for her to bring back food. I don't think it's going to happen. But
some of that good.
One of you had said that you're working on another film or another movie. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right about that. And it's the People's Water Board Coalition with Kate Levy and Sylvia Ordundo and Patricia Jones as part of our national work in the People's Water Board Coalition. And hopefully that film will be premiered sometime this fall before winter. And Maureen is going to be the person who leads us through that film as well. So we're really excited about it. And Maureen has worked on it so hard and so long in these last months. I would let her speak for herself, but she's doing a beautiful job. So that's something for us to all look forward to seeing.
That we do, and let us know so we can help get the word out. And do you know if it's going to be an in-person premiere or is it going to be an online event?
Don't know. It depends on what happens with the variants. We got to kind of wait and see. But yeah.
Well, fingers crossed for that. Maureen, did you want to say anything about the film, the new film?
Maureen, are you there? Okay. Well, I would just like to say that Kate Levy is doing just huge work, and she's traveled all over the country to film communities, including the Navajo Nation and Detroit and Flint and Philadelphia, where there is the first water affordability plan on a really big level that is successfully being done by the same expert that Maureen Taylor and others were able to involve. Roger Colton, who is a leading expert in the area of water affordability. So Roger's in the film as well. So something to look forward to. Yeah. All right.
And
thank you.
Thank you.
There's our website there. If you haven't seen our new website. We redesigned it last year. We put lots of new content up there, and the recording of this session, not the movie because of the copyright laws, but the discussions will go on our YouTube channel, and we'll be mentioning it in our newsletter coming out at the beginning of August, so that you can share it with people who weren't able to come here tonight. And then we will, like I said, we'll be doing more of these, hopefully in the fall, probably around October. We'll be looking for another one, and maybe the new movie that Alice and Maureen were talking about.